Welcome back, and today we're diving deep into the remarkable and often unseen story of USS George Washington, SSBN-598, a submarine that quietly changed the balance of power beneath the world's oceans. This is not a tale of loud battles or dramatic explosions, but a story of silent strength, relentless innovation, and the men who served in one of the most critical deterrent weapons of the Cold War. The story of USS George Washington begins in the tense atmosphere of the late 1950s, when the world was divided by ideology and shadowed by the constant fear of nuclear war. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a race not only for military superiority but for technological dominance. Missiles, bombers, and atomic weapons were evolving rapidly, and military planners were searching for a way to ensure that the United States could always respond to a nuclear attack. The answer would come from beneath the sea. Originally, the hull that would become USS George Washington was not even intended to be a ballistic missile submarine. It began its life as USS Scorpion, a planned skipjack-class attack submarine. However, as the Navy pushed urgently to deploy a sea-based nuclear deterrent, a bold decision was made. The incomplete hull was cut in half, and a massive 130-foot missile compartment was inserted in the middle. This unprecedented move transformed the vessel into the world's first operational ballistic missile submarine. It was a gamble driven by urgency, innovation, and the pressure of global politics. Launched on June 9, 1959, and commissioned on December 30 of the same year, USS George Washington became a symbol of a new era in naval warfare. Unlike surface ships or aircraft, a ballistic missile submarine could hide in the vastness of the ocean, nearly impossible to detect. This invisibility made it the ultimate second strike weapon. Even if the United States were attacked first, submarines like George Washington would survive and be able to retaliate, ensuring mutual deterrence. At the heart of USS George Washington's mission was the Polaris missile system. These nuclear-armed ballistic missiles were revolutionary. Fired from beneath the ocean's surface, Polaris missiles gave the United States a powerful and stealthy nuclear capability. The submarine could carry 16 Polaris missiles, each capable of delivering a nuclear warhead across thousands of miles. For the crew, this meant living with the constant awareness that their vessel carried enough firepower to change the course of human history. Life aboard USS George Washington was demanding in every sense. The submarine was designed for long deterrent patrols that could last months at a time. Crews lived in close quarters, sharing cramped spaces, recycled air, and artificial lighting. Privacy was nearly non-existent, and routines were strict. Yet discipline and professionalism were essential, because the success of the mission depended on absolute precision and reliability. Every system had to work flawlessly, and every crew member had to perform their duties without error. To maintain continuous readiness, USS George Washington operated with a dual crew system known as Blue Crew and Gold Crew. While one crew took the submarine on patrol, the other rested, trained, and prepared ashore. This innovation allowed the submarine to spend more time at sea and less time in port, maximizing its deterrent value. The crews rotated seamlessly, forming a rhythm that kept the submarine constantly ready for its mission. In November 1960, USS George Washington made history when it conducted its first deterrent patrol. Slipping silently into the Atlantic, it became the first submarine to carry nuclear ballistic missiles on a patrol designed specifically to deter nuclear war. This moment marked a turning point in the Cold War. The United States now had a survivable, concealed nuclear force that fundamentally altered strategic calculations on both sides of the Iron Curtain. Throughout the early 1960s, USS George Washington completed numerous patrols, each one reinforcing the concept of nuclear deterrence. The submarine's presence was never announced, its movements never publicized, and its success measured in something unusual for military operations: the absence of conflict. As long as submarines like George Washington remained undetected and ready, the likelihood of a nuclear first strike decreased. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 brought the world closer to nuclear war than ever before, and during this period, ballistic missile submarines played a crucial but largely invisible role. While political leaders negotiated and military forces stood on high alert, submarines like USS George Washington continued their patrols, ready to act if ordered. Their silent vigilance added a stabilizing factor during one of the most dangerous moments in human history. Technologically, USS George Washington was a stepping stone to future generations of ballistic missile submarines. While it was groundbreaking, it also revealed limitations. Early Polaris missiles had shorter ranges compared to later versions, and the submarine's design, adapted from an attack submarine, was not optimized from the start for missile operations. Still, the lessons learned from George Washington directly influenced the development of more advanced submarines, such as the Ethan Allen and Lafayette classes. As the years passed, USS George Washington underwent upgrades to keep pace with evolving technology. Improved missile systems, enhanced navigation equipment, and better living conditions were introduced where possible. Despite these improvements, the submarine remained a product of its time, and by the late 1970s and early 1980s, newer ballistic missile submarines had surpassed it in capability. In 1983, USS George Washington was decommissioned after more than 2 decades of service. By that time, it had completed an impressive number of deterrent patrols and had helped establish a doctrine that continues to shape naval strategy today. Its retirement marked the end of an era, but its legacy lived on in every ballistic missile submarine that followed. Following decommissioning, USS George Washington entered the nuclear-powered ship and submarine recycling program. The process was long and complex, reflecting the challenges of safely dismantling nuclear-powered vessels. Eventually, the submarine was recycled, its materials repurposed, and its reactor compartment handled with strict environmental and safety controls. The true legacy of USS George Washington is not found in museum displays or battlefield victories, but in the quiet success of deterrence. It proved that submarines could carry and deploy ballistic missiles reliably, transforming the strategic balance of the Cold War. By remaining hidden and ready, it helped prevent the very war it was designed to fight. For the sailors who served aboard USS George Washington, the experience left a lasting impression. Many of them never spoke publicly about their missions, bound by secrecy and duty. Yet they knew they were part of something historic. They had served on a vessel that stood watch in the depths, guarding a fragile peace during one of the most dangerous periods in modern history. Today, when we think about nuclear deterrence and the silent service of submarine crews, it all traces back to this pioneering vessel. USS George Washington was more than a machine, it was a bold experiment that succeeded beyond expectations. It changed naval warfare, reshaped global strategy, and demonstrated the power of innovation under pressure. As you reflect on this story, remember that some of the most important chapters of history happened far from the spotlight. Deep beneath the waves, out of sight and out of mind, USS George Washington and her crew carried a responsibility unlike any other. Their mission was simple in concept but immense in consequence: to ensure that war never came. If you found this deep dive into naval history meaningful, take a moment to like the video, share it with others who love military history, and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories from the past. The oceans may be silent, but their stories are anything but.